Welcome back to ZNGP Today. Francesco Pecco Bagnaia's difficult 2025 MotoGP season has become one of the year's biggest talking points. With 213 points so far compared to runaway championship leader and teammate Marc Márquez's 381, the double world champion finds himself far from the title fight. But according to former MotoGP engineer Juan Martinez, Bagnaia's struggles didn't actually begin with the first race of 2025. They started more than a year ago. After a bruising few months of injury and contract drama, Jorge Martín has confirmed he will stay with Aprilia for 2026, and explains that money was never the decisive factor. In a clear-headed interview with DAZN, the reigning champion credited his father's advice to prioritize the best sporting project, praised teammate Marco Bezzecchi's form, and set out a renewed focus on returning to full strength on track. Aprilia's resurgence in 2025 has stunned the paddock. From being a step behind at the start of the year, the Noali factory now sits just shy of Ducati on pure pace, with Marco Bezzecchi regularly on the podium. In an interview with Speed Week, Aprilia technical director Fabio Sterlacchini explains the philosophy behind that turnaround, and why aerodynamics, integration and balance have become non-negotiable priorities. Don't forget to click subscribe button and the bell icon for MotoGP news update. Martinez points to June 2024, when Ducati made the blockbuster announcement that six-time Premier Class champion Marc Márquez would be promoted from Gresini Racing to the factory Ducati Lenovo team for 2025. The move created a super team, pairing two riders who had, between them, claimed 8 of the previous 10 world titles. While many expected fireworks on track and a fierce intra-team rivalry, the real impact, says Martinez, was psychological, and it began long before Márquez and Bagnaia even shared a garage. I think Bagnaia began to feel the impact of what Marc meant when the signing was announced last year. From that moment, every interview started to be about Marc. How will you compare? What will happen? From that point on, Pecco's management of the situation began, Martinez told DAZN. Bagnaia has admitted this season that adapting to the 2025 spec DAZN set-aside GP25 has been challenging, but Martinez believes the mental shift triggered by Márquez's arrival played an equally important role. The difference between the two riders, Martinez explained, lies in riding adaptability. Márquez thrives on constant change, from chassis tweaks to aerodynamic overhauls, and can extract pace from almost any setup. Bagnaia, by contrast, excels when the bike is fine-tuned to his specific style, a more cerebral approach that can be disrupted by rapid technical evolution. When you have a rider like Marc, who can perform in any situation, it makes defining the development direction of the bike much harder, Martinez added. Despite winning the America's GP in March, a race Márquez failed to finish, and scoring 7 podiums from 12 races, Bagnaia has been overshadowed not only by Márquez but also by Gresini's Alex Márquez. Remarkably, Alex, riding last year's GP24, sits second in the championship, 48 points ahead of Bagnaia. For Ducati, this is the only blemish on an otherwise dominant year. The Bologna factory has won every sprint race and 10 Grands Prix in 2025, with performance levels across their machines setting the benchmark for the grid. The only but for Ducati right now is that Bagnaia is not second. They're winning races for fun, but not having both factory riders in the top 2 is a slight discredit, Martinez said. Bagnaia's challenge now is twofold, finding comfort with the GP25's evolving characteristics and managing the constant pressure of comparison with one of the sport's most adaptable and aggressive riders. With the season entering its final stretch, whether he can turn the tide will determine if Ducati ends 2025 with the ultimate 1-2 finish, or with questions lingering about its star signings form. Martin's public U-turn from the contractual standoff with Aprilia grabbed headlines earlier in the season. Manager Albert Valera had pushed claims that Martin could be a free agent in 2026, Aprilia pushed back and even threatened legal action. In Brno, though, Martin ended the dispute, and the chatter, by signing on for another season. No, the financial aspect will obviously always be there, but it's not something that moves me. I've always tried to find the best sporting option. It's something my father taught me. When you get results, the financial aspect will follow. Martin's statement. That statement frames the decision less as a contract negotiation and more as a career assessment. Martin chose the factory environment he believes will give him the best chance to be fast again. Martin's 2025 has been interrupted by injury. He missed most of preseason and could initially only turn up at a handful of rounds, Qatar and Brno among them. The Brno return, where he finished 7th, marked a step back towards race fitness and gave him just enough momentum to commit to Aprilia for next year. Despite a sparse points tally, just 9 points in the first half of the campaign, Martin sounded bullish about his prospects, stressing that the break in competition has not changed his long-term targets. Aprilia's recent run of competitiveness, helped in no small part by Marco Bezzecchi's podiums and win at Silverstone, did not go unnoticed. Martin cited Bezzecchi's results as a persuasive indicator that Aprilia's package is moving in the right direction. Seeing the work the team have done and how the bike is performing, I'd be foolish not to strongly consider staying. For a rider returning from injuries, evidence of progress inside the factory box matters more than short-term financial offers. It's where lap time is won. The spat between Martin's camp and Aprilia, including talk of activating an exit clause and possible legal action, dominated headlines for weeks. At Brno, however, Martin chose to draw a line under the dispute and focus on the sport. With the public wrangling resolved, Martin appears willing to redirect energy from lawyers and headlines back to gym sessions, rehab and on-track mileage. Martin's message about money came with a personal touch. It's a lesson learned at home. When you get results, the financial aspect will follow. That counsel, pragmatic and long-term, reflects a mature reading of a career in motorsport. Performance builds opportunities, not the other way around. Jorge Martin's decision to stay at Aprilia ends a noisy chapter and reorients his focus on recovery and results. Money, he insists, was secondary to the sporting project, a stance informed by his father and validated by recent teammate performances. With Brno behind him and a renewed contract in his pocket, Martin's priority is simple: get fully fit, chase pace, and let the rewards follow. Sterlacchini's message is simple and blunt: in modern MotoGP you cannot afford any glaring deficit. A weakness in top speed, braking stability, tire management, or traction can let rivals dictate the race and destroy your strategic options. You can't afford to have major weaknesses in any area. If, for example, you're not competitive in terms of top speed, other riders can easily overtake and set the pace in the next part of the track. These riders set the pace of the race. Fabio Sterlacchini statement. That holistic view shapes every development choice at Noali, not chasing a single headline figure, but making all systems work together. For Sterlacchini, top speed is the result of many interacting factors, not simply peak horsepower. Traction, wheelie behavior, aerodynamic drag, and acceleration out of the corners all feed into how fast the bike is at the line. At tracks like Mugello, engine power still matters, he admits. But usually the decisive gains come from exploiting the power you already have, refining traction and acceleration rather than hunting more peak output. That mindset reframes development. Extract more usable performance from the existing package instead of constantly escalating engine figures. Sterlacchini argues that aerodynamic progress on motorcycles lags far behind four-wheel research, but that doesn't diminish its importance. Even modest gains in airflow, downforce distribution, or rider comfort add up across a race weekend. The forces acting on it are nothing like those in Formula One. But I like to say that many drops make an ocean, and it's important to exploit the full potential. Aprilia's aero work has improved cornering, braking stability, and thermal management, areas that translate into real lap time gains and reduced tire degradation. Unlike some rivals, Aprilia does not rely on an external wind tunnel. Instead, Sterlacchini leans heavily on in-house simulation tools and integrated analysis to predict behavior before track testing. Simulation is now essential, he says, but its value depends on correct interpretation and validation on track. The factory couples CFD and rider feedback to tune aero packages, then confirms findings in real conditions, a pragmatic route given resource constraints. Historically, Aprilia struggled in hot races with tires overheating. Recent improvements in aero and chassis tuning have helped address that weakness. By optimizing airflow and reducing front-end heating, Aprilia riders can now keep tires in a better window for longer, a major reason for the team's recent string of competitive weekends. Sterlacchini's credo is systems engineering. Mechanical, electronic and aerodynamic domains must be developed together. That multidisciplinary coherence is what has propelled Aprilia from mid-pack to regular podium contention. He stresses that small, consistent improvements across many areas compound into a decisive advantage, and that the team's progress shows how effective that method can be. With more fine-tuning ahead, Noalli's technicians will keep pushing incremental gains until they add up to race wins. Aprilia's climb this year isn't the result of a single breakthrough but of disciplined, cross-discipline work, and at its heart lies a renewed focus on aerodynamics and systems thinking. As Sterlacchini notes, MotoGP now punishes any glaring weakness. Noalli's answer has been to close gaps everywhere. If the trend continues, Aprilia won't just challenge Ducati for pace, it will force rivals to rethink how they balance power, aero and rideability in the era heading toward 2027. Thanks for watching ZNGP Today, and this is your MotoGP news update. And see you next time!